Hi friends of the twins. In today's video, Rhonda, am going to be adding wainscoting here in my formal dining room. If it's something you think you're interested in, then please keep watching. Excited, excited, excited. That is an understatement. I am so excited to be doing my first major project here in my new house. Now, I love my new house, don't get me wrong, but y'all, I know y'all will understand when I say I have to come in and kind of make it my own. So for me, this starts the first of many projects. I know my husband doesn't want to hear that, but yes, I have lots of things that I want to do, and I'm just so excited, and I can't wait for us to get home with this wood and get this show on the road. Hey friends of the twins, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be starting my first kind of major project here in my new house, and it is going to be in my formal dining room. Now, I have been I've been here since December 14th, and so I've been looking around and kind of seeing, kind of putting a mental list together, things that I want to do here in the house to make it be my own. And so the first thing I'm going to do, the first major project, is that we are going to put some wainscoting here in the formal dining room. I've been looking at this, and I think that it is such an elegant decor piece to have in a home, and so I want to start here in my dining room. And stay tuned. I have my husband helping me because I don't know what I'm doing, but he does. And I don't use a lot of power tools, but y'all, that is definitely something that I want to start doing. So he doesn't believe me, but I do want to learn how to use my power tools, because I want to just be able to do the things that I want to do when I want to do it, and I want to do some things on my own. So stay tuned. I have decided that I want my wainscoting to come up 32 inches from the baseboard. Or was it from the floor? From the baseboard, 32 inches. And the reason that I decided upon that is because of this mirror. Originally, I thought about 36 inches up from the baseboard, but this mirror only will allow me to put it about 32 inches. I think that will look good. So the first thing we've done is we have measured this wall that we're going to start on, and the wall is
35 inches and 15/16.
Okay, so it measures, as you can see, about 36 inches, but we're going to make it be 35 and 15/16. Just so that it will fit kind of plumb up against the molding. All right, so we have the miter saw set up, and we're going to do, what'd you say, inside 45-degree cut. And let me show you the wood that we bought. This is what, 8 foot? Mm-hmm. This wood is 3 inches wide. Now, some people use the 4-inch for the wainscoting, but for the size of my dining room, I thought that 4 was going to be a little bit too much. I thought that 4 inches was going to be too much. So I decided to go with 3 inches, and I think that it'll be fine.
All right, so see what we can get on.
So friends, what we're doing now is, after he has given me a lesson in using the miter saw, we're going to go back and remove the tape that I had put up just to give me a visual of what the wainscoting would look like. And we're going to start to put some of our pieces onto the wall. My first tip that I want to give you is to not do what I just did here. As you see, I pulled some of the paint off of the wall. I used this masking tape just because it was convenient. It was what I had at the house and I didn't have any painter's tape. But I would tell you, if you're going to use tape like I did just to give you a visual, to be careful when you're pulling it off the wall. Even better yet would be just to get you some painter's tape. Now, from a novice like me, this was a fairly easy process. The most difficult thing, y'all, is your measurements. Now, earlier we measured this space of the wall to be 36 inches, but we actually cut the PVC board at 35 and 15/16 of an inch, just so that it would butt up right next to the case molding. And so we're starting here at the bottom with the first piece that sits directly on top of the baseboard, and my husband is just going ahead and using the nail gun to get the piece on the wall. And then what he's gonna do is to come back, and he's gonna now look for the studs in the wall, because we have our anchor nails just to kind of hold it in place. And so now he wants to make sure that it's definitely going to be secure on the wall. He's going to go back, find the actual studs in the wall, and put a nail through the PVC board that's going to go directly into the stud. And so now we've gotten our first base rail up, and what we're going to do now is to go ahead and put up the top rail. And if you remember, I am going to put my top rail 32 inches up from my baseboard. Definitely what I learned throughout this process was that the process overall was not hard at all. The hardest thing was your measurements. I can't stress enough that you need to measure, then measure and measure again, and then make your cut. Now, we didn't have too many pieces of board that were cut in error, but that is all due to my Sugar Bear. So what we're doing now is we're placing the PVC board on the wall, and then we're taking our leveler just to make sure that, you know, it is straight. Now, one important thing that I wanted to mention to y'all is that as we were going wall to wall, it was quickly apparent that there weren't going to be any uniform measurements. Each piece of wall measured differently. Here we had 35 and 15/16 width. Now, when we got to the exact opposite side over there, they looked as if they were measured the same, but they actually didn't. With that piece of the wall, the floor was, it actually wasn't level, and that's another thing you have to keep in consideration. You know how when they're building homes, things might not be as level as you think. So once again, that just kind of stresses the importance of your measurements, and your ultimate goal is to have it all look uniform. But what I'm telling you is the way that you'll get there is gonna, depend on your measurements and the adjustments that you'll have to make because of that. Just a little bit over.
Yeah.
So what Shuggy is doing here is he has made the first cut for this next piece of wall that we're going to be adding the wainscoting to, and he's just simply using that first cut board as a template for the second piece. And that just kind of helps, make the time, with the time management, it makes things go a little bit quicker. Now friends, this is where it starts to get exciting for me, because I am a visual person. I like to see, how things are going to look. Lots of times I can already see the end result pretty early on in the process. My husband always teases me about eyeballing things instead of, you know, taking the exact measurements. Just say if I'm hanging a picture or something like that. So this part was very exciting to me to be able to see, you know, what it was going to look like. And at this point, I'm so happy. Okay, so we've gotten our base rail up and we have our top rail up, and it's time to put up these vertical rails, the part that I'm so excited about. Now for this part, friends, we are using liquid nails and not the nail gun. And the reason for that is the vertical rails aren't necessarily going to be going into a stud on the wall. So, you know, there's nothing to nail into. If you're not nailing into a stud, you're just simply nailing into sheetrock. So we want it to be definitely be more secure than that. So for this part, we are using liquid nails. Now you saw him kind of mark off earlier with the pencil where the studs were. So if by chance we're able to go into a stud, then of course we will use the nail gun as he's doing here, but otherwise we'll be using the liquid nails. Now friends, once you put the liquid nails on the board and you place it on the wall, if any squishes over onto the wall, then be sure to go ahead and wipe that up, because you're going to have to paint that area and you want it to be a smooth surface, you know, and once that liquid nails dries, you can't get it off. Now friends of the twins, I need y'all's help with something. I need somebody to tell me, and tell me right now, why my Sugie, my boo-boo, my bae is 6 years older than I am, but I have all of the gray hair. Somebody help me with that. Now this area of the wall that we started with was actually the easiest area to start with the wainscoting. When it came to the vertical railing, you see we have the two outer pieces already up. For the center, you know, I said it was so easy because there was nothing to do but to place that middle vertical rail in the direct center of this part of the wall. And now y'all, of course, I think that I can just eyeball it, but no, you actually do need to make sure to measure everything. So of course Sugie is right there to kind of steer me back onto the right path. So I'm just marking where the center is, and then I will put up my vertical board. Now he's using this little piece of equipment, and y'all, I've forgotten what he told me the name of it was, but we're just making sure that the board is straight. It was much easier for me, and you'll see later on that I just used the level to get it vertically straight. That was just much simpler to me. Now this next little area wall that we're starting on, where my husband is, it looked as if it were the same size as this portion, but they actually weren't. This side here to the right was actually 1.5 inches different. So, and also we realized that the floor on this side of the wall seemed to not be level. So once again, it's just, I can't stress enough the measurements. And just like we did on the first side, you know, as we come over to this side, we're going to start with our base rail first. And then he's going to go along and actually find out where the studs are. Remember that, so that we can put nails directly into the stud, which just keeps everything all safe and secure. And so I'm just making progress here on the other side. Friends, that piece of equipment that I didn't know the name of, it is called a T-square. And now here I'm just taking a moment to step back and look at my handiwork. Well, y'all know my Sugie's handiwork, but he let me come along as his trusty assistant. And we have actually moved on to the next wall, which is a little bit bigger, so the spacing of the vertical rails is going to take a little bit more thought, and I'll actually have to use 4 vertical rails on this side of the wall. Now I'm going to try my best to keep the spacing as uniformly close to the other portions of the wall that we finished as possible, but with the varying widths and all of the different pieces of the wall, that's kind of the good thing about the wainscoting, is that there is a certain degree of flexibility with it. And so what he's doing now is just going back and making sure to put nails into the studs. Now once again, we did not choose to put liquid nails on the pieces that we knew we could get into the stud. We really only used the liquid nails on the vertical railing pieces, but that's a personal choice. So we moved on to the next part of the wall, and he decided that he wants to just go ahead and cut all of the top railing pieces. So I'm just taking my measurements, and I always measure 2-3 times, 4 times if you're somebody like me, and then hopefully only have to cut once. And as you see, just like before, he's checking for the stud placement. And here we're measuring for the base railing. And the reason we're doing that is because, remember, our boards are 8 foot long, and we know that this wall is more than 8 feet long, so we're going to have to cut 2 boards. So he's trying to figure out the measurements for the first piece. And so here it is. We've gotten the first piece on, and he's coming along here with the second piece. Now this was the trickiest wall, and I'll tell y'all why. The top railing was fine. We knew that it was going to be 32 inches regardless of anything. The tricky part came in because there are 2 outlets on this wall, and also we have the window sill casing. So I wasn't going to be able to space them exactly, the vertical pieces exactly as I had on the other wall, which I believe they end up being 15, and like here, I couldn't use that same spacing just because I had to compensate for the outlets and the window sill. So I'll show y'all in just a minute. I actually came up with a little bit of a different design for this wall, and I was pretty happy with how it came out. So that's what I mean when I say like there is a degree of flexibility when you're putting up the wainscoting, because there are other factors that you may have to consider. But in the end, it all comes together. It doesn't have to be everything wall to wall, matchy, because you might have to compensate for different things. And so here is how this side turned out. We're getting pretty close to finishing. We just have one more wall to go, and then it will be time to caulk and to paint. So I was pretty happy overall. This is the last wall, this wall that has a mirror on it, and this is the one that kind of set the tone, because typically the top rail would have been 36 inches from the baseboard, but I had to go 32 inches. I could only go 32 inches because of this mirror hanging here. And so we made it to this final wall, and by this time, y'all, we were in a rhythm, and it actually went pretty quickly. I feel like we did pretty well. I was happy with how it ended up looking. My husband had never put up any wainscoting, and I certainly had not. So for a first time, it went pretty well. It wasn't hard at all. Like I said, the thing was the measurements as we went wall to wall, because no one wall, none of them were the same width or anything like that. So you just had to play around with the spacing and all that. So our next step will be to get things caulked in, and then we'll get ready for the exciting part to me, which is the painting. Details, which is what I like. So you do want to be sure and go back and caulk in any little spaces or gaps that you see. And we used a wood putty for the nail holes. That'll just give you a smooth, finished look when when you start to paint. For the paint, I'm using this Bear High Gloss in a pure white, and that's because y'all, I have worked so hard. I want all of my handiwork to pop right out and have an extra little shine to it. So I'm all settled in. I got my iPad for a little background noise, and I have started to paint. And initially I started out with this paintbrush, but I quickly realized that there was a much quicker way to do it, so I went and got me a small roller brush, and things went pretty quickly from there. So I ended up giving it 2 coats of paint, and this is after the first coat. I'm going to be sharing my dining room tour really soon. Make the life that you live a life that you love. Life is short, and thanks so much for watching.